what if there's something you can do right now to create a better future? And it's absolutely free. Will you do it? Let's start at the 7th of July, 1995, on the Baltoro Glacier in Pakistan. I'm sweating just below the second highest mountain in the world, K2, because I've spent 1.5 hours jumping across the meltwater stream with my excessively attractive American expedition companion, Scott Fisher. And he asks a very simple question. Do you want to climb Everest with me in the spring of 1996? Yes! Taken by utter surprise, I listened to my impulsive yes to want to climb the highest mountain in the world. I can't. I'm about to climb 7,300 meters high for the first time in my life, and Everest is 8,848 meters high. But I want to. I want Everest. And I literally feel something happening in my brain. I can only describe it as a quantum jump explosion. It's as if my brain cells are shattered 100 meters above me as glittering confetti on the glacier. And I become mobilized from within. It's as if an inner tsunami is just propelling me forward beyond any rational control. I want Everest, but I can't. So I'll have to innovate myself beyond my present status quo to make Mount Everest happen. As I'm back in my 2-room flat on Østerbro in Copenhagen, I of course have to acknowledge my very limited resources. But I really do want Everest. So I decide cynically to turn myself into a human guinea pig. I will attempt to program my brain to manipulate my subconscious to become able to achieve something that I have never accomplished before. I do know from statistics that 1 out of 10 mountaineers die wanting to climb Everest, and most of those who die, they die on the way down from the mountain. Therefore, I invent a self-manipulating mantra: to the summit and safe return, to the summit and safe return. I want to program my subconscious to set aside a certain percentage of my limited resources to keep me alive all the way to the summit and down safely. To the summit and safe return. When you're undertaking something for the first time, it craves a lot more energy than when you are repeating what you have already proven to yourself that you can sort of cope with. So in my human experiment to climb Everest, I also want to con my mind into believing that I have already been climbing Everest before I actually set foot there for the first time. And I do that by sort of feeding myself with as much information about Everest as I possibly can, so that hopefully I will have more resources available when I'm there than I would have if I hadn't sort of made this human experiment with myself. Scott's invitation, do you want to climb Everest with me, literally comes with a price tag. I need to pay 250,000 Danish kroner to have my name on the Mountain Madness expedition permit. It wasn't a gift, it was an invitation. 250,000 Danish kroner is mandatory. If I cannot raise the money, there will be no Everest for me. And again, this inner mobilization just forces me to innovate a strategy to persuade potential sponsors to provide me with what I desperately need: cash. And it does take some explanation to well-meaning logo specialists that their company flags must maximum weigh 5 grams. And no, I cannot bring a flagpole. Speed equals safety in the mountains, so therefore we carry absolutely no excess weight. We even saw off the handles of our toothbrush. To the summit and safe return. At night, when I've spent the whole day trying to negotiate with sponsors and come up with new ideas, I'm exhausted. And thoughts of giving up naturally emerges, and this is where I obsessively repeat to the summit and safe return, to the summit and safe return. I truly hope that I can manipulate my old habits of giving up towards really focusing on what I want in my new part of me, to the summit and safe return. And I do experience waking up every morning with new initiative so I can take one more step towards actually transforming this grandiose dream into real results of getting to the summit and hopefully back down safely. The resilience that I do develop over these 8 months of negotiating sponsor contracts is nothing compared with the stamina that I'll need to actually survive Everest. To the summit and safe return. Venturing into the unknown with no guarantees of success craves a resilient mindset. To the summit and safe return becomes my mental GPS. As we are trekking into Everest Base Camp, I observe our co-expedition leader, Russian Anatoly Bukharev, tall, provokingly self-contained, and very fast. Anatoly is a genius in the mountains, and he does not simulate Scott's unsaturated hunger for being loved by all. Anatoly cross-examines me, and he asks, "Why you want to climb? You're a woman." Followed by, "If you want to climb Mount Everest, you must have the will to suffer." As our team is climbing through the Khumbu Icefall for the first time, and I encounter one of the 77 aluminium ladders bridging the frightening crevasses, my first and instant inclination is to grab my return ticket on the bottom of my backpack and go back to Denmark. And that's where, to the summit and safe return, this self-programming actually kicks in. And I just keep walking forward, learning what it takes to get to the summit instead of giving up. I'm following in Scott's crampon steps towards Camp 1 at 5,800 meters when I start hyperventilating. Tears overwhelm me. I thought that I have overcome my fear of heights and my panic attacks. Tear, it turns out, of pure, all-pervading happiness. No fear. Scott, thank you so much for making Everest happen for me. Thank you so much for inviting me into your world. Scott gives me a big hug, and he says, "I knew you would understand." Scott has reinforced my true potential since I first met him in Nepal in 1991. And on the glacier, it's outstanding fuel for my exhausted system provoked by Anatoly's The Will to Suffer technique, where he always say, climb, exhaust yourself beyond your present limits, then go back to base camp and rest for 3 days and recuperate. Then you are ready to climb higher. I am happy. To the summit and safe return. Around 3 o'clock in the afternoon on May 9th, our team is assembling at the death zone, Camp 4 at 8,000 meters. Very driven individuals, united through one mission, to the summit and safe return. We have all invested 1 month climbing up and down Everest to acclimatize, to be in top shape, literally, when the meteorological systems potentially allow 3 to 4 days of calm weather, the notorious weather window. Dense fog and high winds just keeps getting stronger in the hours we have to rest in Camp 4 before our summit attempt at midnight. I salute the forces of nature in our purple Russian tunnel tent that I share with Anatoly, Martin Adams, and Cleve Schöning. We are having the time of our lives. experienced beyond expecting anything from our expedition leader Scott or each other. I must have fallen asleep because I wake up due to silence. A starlit midnight sky greets us as we one by one pokes our head out of our colorful cocoons, all focused inwards on the summit. Various nationalities and experience levels, several expeditions, self-centered beyond normality, fundamental survival rules. Everything happens in slow motion above 8,000 meters due to the lack of oxygen. Laboriously, I clip on my crampons, grateful for the cool darkness concealing the brutal reality of where I am. To the summit and safe return makes existence simple. 10 steps, 5 minutes rest. I'm content. 10 steps, 5 minutes hyperventilation. The marrow of my bone feels frozen. Tunnel vision, hour after hour after hour. My water bottle is solid ice in spite of being placed close to my body. Just do it. Will, 1 foot in front of the other. 10 steps, 5 minutes pause. Applying my newly acquired ability, the will to suffer. 14 hours pass, up and up and up, until I set foot on top of the world. And I'm intimidated. The earth is indeed round. This is what I am. I did not know. I find myself on the summit of Everest. To the summit and safe return, primitive survival instincts urges me to get myself off the summit as swift as humanly possible. We are literally dying at the death zone as long as we remain there because our bodies are consuming the protein in our muscles to keep us alive. As I'm descending on the shabby ropes on Hillary Step, I encounter Scott, who's still on his way up. And I have so much wanted Scott not to risk climbing Everest this year because he's been too exhausted for at least a year. But I have also learned that I cannot protect Scott from himself in spite of his honest appeal in letters to me over a great deal of years. Lene, please do not let me die in the mountains. To the summit and safe return. Neil Beidelman, Charlotte Fox, Sandy Hill Pittman, Tim Madsen, and I form a descending subcluster. False emotional security in numbers is all we can give to each other at this altitude. We climb into a stormy whiteout. This is the life and death scenario that I have been preparing for. I'm not surprised. This is Everest, unshootable for human survival. We are not lost. We just do not know where we are right now. We arrive back at the South Col probably at 6 or 7 o'clock at night, and we cannot locate Camp 4. Survival rule number 1 in the mountains is, if you cannot find your camp, dig a snow cave. We have no shelter but each other's bodies. Survival rule number 2, do not let go of your will to survive. The agony that freezing of your extremities cause incapacitates 2 of our huddle mates, and one keeps begging, "It hurts so much, it's so cold, just let me die." We are not complying, and we keep yelling and hitting to prevent anybody from slipping into consciousness and sure death. An unknown amount of hours later, could be anywhere between 2 and 4 in the morning, Cleve, Neil, and I instinctively comprehend that to stand a chance of surviving, we must drag ourselves and do what really feels humanly impossible. Get up on our feet and locate Camp 4. Cleve starts dragging someone to save her, but is forced to let go, not to die himself. There's a tent, 2, and I see Anatoly. Anatoly, the others are still out there. They're dying. Where? 300 meters in that direction. It's all flat. Don't walk high. Semi-conscious, I perceive Anatoly returning. And he has finally located Sandy, Charlotte, and Tim and his own way back. And immediately he collapses into his sleeping bag. And I sip it with my frostbitten fingers and watch as his hands are swelling. Anatoly is gone, deep within himself. And as I kiss him on the forehead, I say, Anatoly, Scott is still up there. To the summit and safe return. By venturing into the unknown, by saying yes, I became the first Scandinavian woman to summit Everest. My mental experiment to the summit and safe return helped me survive. Scott died on his way down, and he is still on the mountain. To the summit and safe return, I climbed Everest with my brain. By saying yes, I experienced the brain's potential to transform our life when we want something enough. How many times a year do you feel like giving up? I often wonder if what we need as human beings in modern life to truly become content, not happy, but content, is suppressed by digital fixes, consumption, and overworking. Do you want a future worth living? In my experience, life has no meaning until we innovate it. And your brain is your mental GPS to achieve what you have never accomplished before. True innovation starts with a thought in your brain. And a thought is an electrical impulse. It's a measurable structure that looks like a tree with branches. And today, neuroscience confirms that through visualization and neuroprogramming, by repeating your focus on something that you truly want, you can train your brain. It's called neuroplasticity. And you can discipline your brain until the day you die. Today, I find meaning in my commitment to improve the state of the world. It does sound rather naive and impossible until it's done. And I'm inspired by Nelson Mandela's decent fight for human justice. Not even 30 years of imprisonment on Robben Island could stop his idea of anti-apartheid to spread worldwide. We can all learn to program our brain to create meaningful opportunities in our future. And to call it simple, I call it futurize the Everest way. 1, try to find out what you believe will truly give you meaning in life. 2, start and keep doing. 3, discipline your will to suffer. Pursue your meaningful mission until you have accomplished what you set out to do, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, and very importantly, remember the base camp breaks. We can innovate the future one brain at a time. Will you innovate a sustainable future with me?